All right, so over the last several weeks, we've been talking about productivity. And I've introduced to you three simple ways that you can be more productive and less overwhelmed. And today we're gonna cover the fourth. So buckle up, because we're about ready to get into the fourth and final tip for you to be more productive. Let me introduce myself real quick. My name's Zach with Great Purpose Coaching. I'm a performance and leadership coach. I work with a lot of leaders, entrepreneurs, sales professionals, and you know what? Anybody that desires to live a high-performance life. It doesn't matter who you are and what you do. Whatever it is, you want to be great at it. And I love working with people like yourself who are go-getters. You got a lot in the tank. You want to accomplish so much in your life, and that's why I'm doing this video series on productivity. Because if that is you, I can relate. I have this deep burning desire to do as much as possible, to leave a legacy, to live a life of significance, to be successful, right? All those things, that we can get really passionate about. But you know what? When that is in your DNA, when you're wound up like that and want to do significant things, and you tend to get a lot on your plate. You tend to say yes to a lot of things. You tend to pursue a lot of opportunities, right? It makes sense. It's who you are. I mean, you just can't help yourself. And can you relate? I mean, is that you? And when you do, though, what happens? Well, you get too much on your plate. You say yes to too many things, and before you know it, you're feeling a little overwhelmed. You're feeling like there is no time. Like, you start to think about, gosh, I really want to get this done. But then you start feeling defeated, like, I can't have it, I don't have time. And all of a sudden, the things that are actually very important to you and matter a lot to you become inconveniences. Your children become inconveniences. You love them to death, but gosh, they're so in the way of my goals, right? I'm guilty of that. And I know a lot of people that have been, and they're not proud of it. And naturally, you don't want to stay there, because you know that there's a lot of things that are very important to you. And you need to start maybe focusing on productivity a little bit more if all of a sudden you're feeling a little torn between two important areas. It's important to you to build your business. Very important. It's equally important to be a great parent and a great spouse. And it's equally important to you to maintain your health and your faith and your spirituality. Right? There's these areas of our lives that are all important to us. Is that fair? And so what's so important, though, is to address this feeling of no time, right? As we feel like, gosh, we get these great ideas for some workouts we want to do, or we think about how we want to improve our diet, and then we think about this next initiative we want to chase in our business. And you can kind of be left with this feeling of, I wish I could do that. I wish I had time. Yeah, I mean, have you been there? It's very normal. It makes sense, because it is a lot. So that's why I've been doing these videos for us, because I'm getting as much out of these as possible, because I'm doing my research for these videos and the trainings, and it's great reminders like, oh yeah, I did put that in practice 3 years ago, and it did make a huge difference, right? And so that's it's as much for me as for you. So what I took away from something I was reading just the other day was, I'm thinking about productivity and what I wanted to point out to you. And what I realized is productivity, we want to make it so much about time and time management. We do. But you know what? Productivity isn't about time. It's about how we manage our focus and our energy. And I'll just give you my notes here. Can you see that? Productivity isn't about time. It's about maintaining focus and energy. Cool? I mean, that's really what it's about. I don't know if time's the problem. I bet you have plenty of time. I'm willing to bet there's at least 10 hours in your week that you have that you're not leveraging. And I'm not saying you got to get rid of Netflix completely. I'm not. I think that, Xbox, sure. I'm not saying that. I'm not going to go attack your Netflix binge watching every once in a while. That's kind of fun. It's a great hobby to jump in and watch some good shows from time to time. So I'm not browbeating you because you're not using your time well. It's not about your time. It's about if you were able to manage your energy how quickly could you bounce back from the inconveniences and be right back where you need to be, creating what you want and building that dream, right? But the problem is that's not what happens. Life happens, curveballs get thrown, and we're crushed. See, I don't have enough time. Who am I kidding? I can't do all this. And we will spend way more time than we need on that, on telling us the story we don't have time. How do you feel when you continue to tell yourself, I don't have time, or I'm busy, or I'm overwhelmed? Well, you feel overwhelmed, you feel stressed, you feel maybe even saddened by the fact that you can't do it all. And I'm not sure you can do it all, but I think you can do a lot more of what matters to you than what you realize, right? And you just feel, those feelings leave you feeling demotivated. And what types of action do you usually take? Well, I reach for my cell phone and I scroll, or I watch Netflix, or I just do I go to my email, I go to my inbox. That's actually what I do most, is when I'm feeling overwhelmed, I look for something to respond to react, to make me feel maybe a little better myself. Well, at least I'm doing email, at least I'm making progress there, right? But am I making any progress in my email? And I think we've established that I'm not in the previous videos. So what do we do with all that? I mean, I think this is a common experience. I don't think I'm alone here. I don't think so. So what I want to do today is build upon all the things we've been talking through over the last 3 videos, right? We talked about, do you have an inbox, a personal inbox that only you can put stuff in, it's not your email, that you can collect all the ideas and all the things that are important to you in one spot so that you can action them. But then do you also have a parking lot? Can you hear the sirens outside? I love downtown. Do you have a parking lot? So the stuff hits your inbox, your personal inbox, not your email. Do you have a parking lot? Do you have something to say, yeah, that's a good idea, but someday, maybe, not now. I've already, because the second piece, focus. I've already decided what my one thing is, and I've landed on my 5 needle movers. I know the 5 things I'm going to be focusing on this week, and it doesn't fit. It doesn't align. It's going on the parking lot, right? And then we talked about the importance of having a weekly review, because how do you evaluate and continue to move forward in a sustainable way? Well, you do that in the weekly review, and I showed you how to do that in the last video. So today, I want to help you get a vision for what productivity can look like for you. Because if productivity isn't about time, and instead it's about managing your energy and your focus, then let's do that. Let's get a vision for how to do that. And we do that by creating an ideal week. That is what I'm asking you to do. Is, do you know what your ideal week is? Yeah, I know, Zach, but I mean, I don't get the liberty to have an ideal week because I have kids, and sometimes they wake up at 5 a.m., sometimes they wake up at 8, I don't know. Sometimes they nap, sometimes they don't. And sometimes they make mess. Like, I have no control of my time. You're right, you don't. Nobody does. And so when I say an ideal week, I'm not saying getting attached to the week to where if you don't get to fulfill your ideal week, you're a failure and you need to feel guilty. But just like in anything in life, do you have a vision? What would be ideal? You know what? If you could spend your time exactly how you wanted to spend it, in the most productive way possible, that you're able to bring the energy and the focus and get maximum results with minimum effort, because we have to, because we're so busy already. We need to figure out what the minimum effort is to get the maximum results. That's a big component of productivity we've already talked about. And so do you have a vision for what that looks like? And you get a vision for how that works like by creating an ideal week. What do I mean by an ideal week? It is an opportunity for you to calendar block your entire week. Do it in 30-minute increments, 1-hour increments, 15-minute increments. Start with 30 minutes. Create 30-minute increments from the time you wake up, from the time you go to bed, Monday through Sunday. What are you doing with your time? Now, me, I'm not a super structured person, and routine sometimes gets boring, and so I want to change it up. But I'm learning about myself, and I'm wondering how true it is for you, is sometimes that can become a very distracting personality trait and an unproductive one. And so I've found that the ideal week has helped me at least create some focus. And I've also given myself permission to make adjustments to the ideal week. But I always know what it is. I know how I want to spend my time. When I wake up, without fail, I haven't changed this one. I make coffee, right? I do some journaling. I do like a mindfulness practice. I do something to just kind of get settled into the day. I pull out my executive morning plan, and I highlight, set my intentions for the day, and I maybe read, or I get right into the work at hand, right? But I'm learning that I can even get more specific. Like, what am I using the blocks of time specifically for? Because when I can decide in advance, I no longer have to negotiate my time as much. I already know that mornings are reserved for prospecting. I already know that my afternoons, I know that 4 p.m. is reserved for responding to my emails. And that keeps me out of my inbox until 4 p.m. But that's easier said than done. There's some other things you can do to stay out of your inbox, but I create blocks of time specifically designed for specific activities. The activities that I know maybe I have to do because it's just part of my responsibility, but then also I build in what I want to do. I calendar block when I'm doing the workouts, and I calendar block lunchtime, and I create the space that I need to show up as my best self. And that is a big reason why we spend some time focusing on what's your one thing, what's your 5 needle movers, because once you know what those are, you put them on the calendar. You calendar block the entire week to make sure that you're prioritizing those things you said are important to you and your goals to move forward. And you have it. I've seen people do this in like a Excel spreadsheet where you just kind of color code the cells as like 30-minute increments for the day, and you can kind of make a visual there. Google Sheets. What I found helpful is I created a calendar in Google Calendar or Microsoft Outlook, and it's just a calendar separate from my actual calendar, and I use that as my ideal week, and I create those time slots, and I make them reoccurring events or not. You know, I block it all off, and this is what I want my week to look like. I want to be spending my mornings doing my creative work, because I'm fresh and energized in the morning. In the afternoon, I want to do meetings. And I have those on my calendar because now I can create some boundaries. And now when somebody's like, yeah, let's schedule some time, I'd love to talk, great. My afternoons are wide open, right? Well, mornings work, you know, and sometimes you got to flex, right? There's sometimes we're like, well, afternoons don't work for me. Okay. Then I get to decide, well, am I going to allow this individual to override my ideal week? And many times I say, yes, I am, right? And so the ideal week, you don't get married to it, but it's at least a vision for what you're wanting. It's an intention. It's what you want to do. Because if you don't know what you want to do and how you want to spend your time and where you want to spend it, then there's the overwhelm. Because, I've got 2 hours. I've got so much to do. What do I do first, right? That's the constant. But if you can create more of a systematic, consistent action plan on those big bucket things that move the needle, that's why I'm talking about the 5 needle movers, you can build those into your calendar and make sure you take consistent action on them every week. I promise you, if you're feeling any overwhelm at all and feeling like you don't have time, take time now, make it, create it, put it on your calendar to create an ideal week. List out all the stuff that you want to get done. List out the focus. List out the 5 needle movers. And think about what's the action I need to be taking daily or weekly on each of these to move them forward. How much time? And think about how much time do they actually take? And what type of energy do I usually need? There's certain things on there like, these take a high creative focus and energy. I need to be at my best to do these because if I'm at all depleted and tired, I just can't effectively do these things. Okay, great. When are you the most energized? Boom, put that on the calendar exactly there. That's when you have to do those things, because why would you rob from yourself when you already know you're the best at this time of day? Then do your best to, and again, we're just putting the ideal week. There's things that are going to come up that will get in the way, right? The kids aren't going to nap. Your boss is going to call a meeting. You're gonna have your biggest customer is gonna call you and ask you to fly out, right? All that stuff happens, and we shouldn't be defeated because we didn't get to our ideal week. But how many days do go by that you just didn't negotiate where you spend your time in advance, so you spend too much time and energy trying to decide what you should do instead of just getting right into it. And so that's the point of the ideal week, is to give you a roadmap to be like, all right, this is where and how I'm spending my time. And you know what? It's also time blocked. So if something comes up in the morning, you then can decide, you know what? That morning time, that creativity is so needed right now. I'm gonna let something else off my calendar and I'm gonna move it to the afternoon, because you get a full control of your calendar. You can't control how you can't control time. You can't control what happens to you, but you can control how you respond to it. And the idea is to be as agile as possible and just bounce back. Get really good at bouncing back, right? Because if you let yourself get frustrated and overwhelmed, you are not bouncing back. You're letting the world, the situation, affect you way too much. And what I want you to do is become the creative force in your own life, be at the cause, and you start by having a vision and knowing where you're heading and what you want. That way, as things come up, you know exactly what it got in the way of, but then you know exactly where you can reprioritize and keep moving. So, get an ideal week. That is the message of today's video. I hope you found these last 4 videos helpful. Check these videos out. They're I think maybe I can put a link in the notes below, but check these out, watch them, take some notes. Yeah, and I want to hear from you. What did you find most helpful in this video series? Drop a comment, send me a message. If you haven't already, check out my executive morning plan. I think that's another great way. I didn't talk a lot about it in these trainings because we've already covered so much, but setting your intentions every morning for how you want to show up as a leader, how do you want to respond to the obstacles. This plays into your ideal week, right? How do you want to respond when things don't go your way? When the kids do get sick and you have to cancel the babysitter, and when the kids don't nap, or when you do have to travel unexpectedly. How do you want to respond to that? How do you want to respond? And you set your intentions in advance, because then it just kind of becomes a default. You go there automatically and you start to be like, oh yeah, I actually played this out in my mind. When this happens, I'm going to do this, because I know that when I do this, it's going to set me up for, put me in the best position for future success. So hope you found this video helpful. Drop me some comments below. I want to hear from you, and I'll see you in the next video.